Today is June 12th, and if you are a Disney fan, you know today is the day that Artemis Fowl gets released to Disney Plus. And Artemis Fowl was supposed to come out earlier than it was, but due to the virus, it got pushed back to today. So, when I woke up this morning, I went downstairs, I pulled out my phone, pulled out Disney Plus, and watched it right away, and I'm just gonna say it, I didn't have very high hopes for this movie. I don't know anyone that did. The commercials didn't look good, and I'm not a big fan of the Disney live action movies, which this was, like the fantasy movies like A Wrinkle in Time and most of the live action remakes. So, I didn't have high hopes for it, and some of those hopes were changed throughout the movie, some of them stayed the same. And I've got notes here, so let's go through my review of Artemis Fowl. So, Artemis Fowl is about a 12-year-old boy named Artemis Fowl, who is a criminal genius mastermind. So, the plot of the movie is that his dad gets captured by the evil fairy Opal Cowboy? Opal Cowboy? I think that's how you say it. But he needs to get his dad back, so that's the whole point of the movie. Even though that doesn't happen in the first book, whatever. The books, the Artemis Fowl books, don't even exist in this universe. So forget it if you're a book fan. Sorry. So it begins at Fowl Manor, and the media is there, everyone's there, and a man named Mulch. He is a tall dwarf. He's a tall dwarf. So, that's so dumb. But anyway, he's played by Josh Gad. He gets arrested. They bring him to like the interrogation room to tell him where Artemis Fowl is, and then our story begins. So Josh Gad narrates it throughout the whole story. So he begins in the beginning. He's in the beginning, the middle, and the end, pretty much. The ending is just basically all him. So he narrates it, and in the beginning of the movie, the dad leaves for business, but then he gets captured by the evil fairy. So that's pretty much the introduction of the plot. So a man named Dom Butler is introduced then. He's pretty much the butler. He's called the butler in the books. I've never read the books, so, but I'm pretty sure he's called Butler in the books, except in the movie, he doesn't want to be called Butler. So, I can't explain that one. so, they have 3 days to retrieve the Oculus. He has a Irish accent, so it's called the Oculus or whatever he calls it. It's a very like magical item that they need to get to free his dad. So first they need to find the dad journal, because he writes everything in his journal. Everything that he's found out about fairies and magical creatures, he writes down in this journal. So, of course, Artie finds that right away. They're wasting no time in this one. They find it right away without any hassle. So, they do that, and then they talk about the fairies. And then the narrator transitions us into the fairy world. And by the way, these transitions are rough. Like, it's from one plot, like the dad plot, to the fairy plot right away, which is actually like in the book. The fairy plot is in the actual book. So this is like the meat of the book right here. And it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, or it does make sense in the plot, but it's just a weird transition. So anyway, the fairy world is amazing. The fairy world is so cool to look at. If this movie is successful, which is not going to be, I'm just telling you right there, it's not going to be. People are blasting this movie, and Rotten Tomatoes have already given 11% review. This is not going to get a sequel. What they wanted to do was make this into a franchise, and you might have seen the thumbnail. This is not how to make a franchise. But anyway, so the fairy world, if this movie is successful, I would love them to bring that fairy world into like land in Disney World or Disneyland. The fairy world is absolutely beautiful. It kind of reminded me of like a Star Wars prequel, like planet, or like almost like Avatar a little bit, like Pandora. It's pretty cool. So the Oculus is missing. It was taken by a man named... Sorry, it beats something. These names are really hard to pronounce, but he stole the Oculus, and his daughter, Holly, is a fairy, and she's very important to the story. So, we exit the fairy world then, comes back to the real world, planet Earth. Again, not a good transition. The butler's niece is now here. Her name is Juliet. Because the butler needs help, everyone needs help, they need more, muscle. In case if they get attacked. So, back to the fairy world, there's a centaur helping Holly to the top of the earth because there's a troll that is a uninvited guest that they need to take care of. So, they send Holly to the top of, like, they live underground, so they send her to up top. And then the troll crashes a wedding, so the fairies and Holly need to stop it. They stop the troll right away. They take it away. They have the power to freeze time, which is like used in every movie now. It was used in Over the Hedge. It was used in X-Men. Used in Sonic. Now it's used in this. I don't know what's with that anymore. Like, they just freeze time. They have that power, I guess. So, after that, Artemis Fowl and Butler are looking to capture a fairy, and I'll explain when we get into spoilers. I'll explain that. So, they capture Holly. They want to have her there for ransom, which is the point of the whole first book. So Opal wants the Oculus, like before, to free Artemis's dad. Mulch, the huge dwarf, is in jail, because is in like the fairy jail. That's not a huge spoiler. His jail scene is one of the funniest things. It's the funniest thing in this movie. I won't give it away because it's so great. You have to watch it on your own if you have Disney Plus. He's a really good pickpocketer, so he pickpocketed Holly, and she has like a little like CD player, so he's listening to a song and he's like singing and humming it. It's funny. If you watch it, go watch it. That's a spoiler. Just looking through my notes to see if there's any spoilers here. You know what? I'll get to the spoiler talk here. So if you haven't seen the movie and you want my full recap of the entire movie, go to the timestamp on the screen in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so now everyone that's still here, you've probably seen the movie. If you haven't, please go back and go to the timestamp on the screen, because these are spoilers. So what Artemis wants to do is capture Holly, hold her for ransom, so the fairies will be able to give them... In the book, they want to give them gold. But what he wants is the Oculus. So, the whole fairy, gang comes. And then there's a fairy working for the evil fairy, Opal, that takes control of the situation. and they're all in Fowl Manor. So they're trying to get into Fowl Manor, but they can't break in. The very code is that they can't break into houses. So what they do is they go get Mulch to go in and go into Fowl Manor to open the safe. Or he doesn't want it. They don't want him to open the safe, but he opens the safe because it's part of Artemis's plan. And then they find the Oculus there because his dad was working with the guy that stole the Oculus before, and the guy that stole the Oculus before is dead. So Artemis can use the Oculus to bring his dad back. But what he doesn't know is that if he uses the Oculus, he's human. He'll die. So he needs a fairy to open the Oculus, which Holly does later. But back to the evil fairy Opal. So she has a henchman that works in the fairy world. So he takes control of the situation. He brings in the troll before to knock down Fowl Manor. So they fight the troll. They fight the troll. He destroys a lot of the inside of Fowl Manor. But they're fighting, and then a chandelier drops on the troll, and the troll something falls on the troll, and the troll falls and hits Butler. Now, Butler is severely wounded by this, and he almost dies. Except Holly can use magic to save the Butler, which she does, of course. So all the fairies are leaving because they got what they wanted. They got the Oculus. They're okay. But Holly stays with Artemis to bring back his dad, which, of course, they do. And Artie is reunited with his dad, and this is where it gets bad. So the ending is not very good because you come back to the part where all the media is there from the beginning of the movie where Mulch gets arrested. So all the media is there. They're, the dad and Artie are talking back with each other, and they say something about going back and getting Opal, which before, this is why it's a bad ending. Opal doesn't do anything. I'm serious. She literally just cries out no, and that's the end of Opal's story. There's nothing else. It's just that. Like, wait, you have to have something more than that. You have to have, like, Opal come to Fowl Manor, or something that's not just that. The ending's terrible. I'm sorry, the ending is really bad. So what happens is that they fix that right away with having Artie and his dad go in a helicopter to go get Opal, which doesn't make sense either because they're not going to have a second one, but sorry. So the helicopter is flying, they're going to go to Opal, but they need some backup, so that story ends. The whole movie is being told by the narrator, Mulch, which is played by Josh Gad. And Josh Gad's the best character. Mulch is the best character in this whole movie. Just saying. So that whole story is being told by Mulch. And you know what? I think this is not the end of the spoiler talk. So the whole story is being told by Mulch, and then he's being interrogated, of course, but they somehow find out where Mulch is. Don't ask me how, but they find out where Mulch is, they pick him up, and then the movie ends. And they're going to go find Opal and bring her down. This is the end of spoiler talk. So, the ending is absolutely terrible, and it's not a good way to set up a franchise if you want to make more movies. If you take 3 books and cram it all into one movie, it doesn't make sense. Harry Potter did this well. Harry Potter specifically made each book a movie. Artemis Fowl did not do that, and that's the biggest flaw of this movie to me, because I've never read the books before, and I don't know. If you're a book fan, let me know down in the comments what you think about this movie. I've never read the books, but I think cramming 3 books into one movie is not going to be a good way to set up a sequel or a 3rd or 4th or 5th movie if you want to make those in the future. I have to give it to Disney though. They did somehow cram in 3 books into one movie, but they did it well with intertwining the stories, like the story with the first book, and this is if you're watching this, I'm sorry if you haven't read the books, but the first book is about them capturing Holly the fairy and holding her for ransom. That happens in the movie. I'm not gonna spoil it from here, but yeah, that happens in the movie, and it's intertwined well within the captured dad story. That's the overarching plot of this entire movie. But other than that, the transitions were rough between the fairy world and the human world. Like the first transition where he went to the fairy world and then back to the niece and then back to the fairy world. First of all, I don't know why the niece is a character in this, because she literally does nothing throughout the movie. There's just an introduction of her, and then she doesn't even help Artemis in the action scene. Like, if you, I just thought about this. The niece that is brought in for backup doesn't help. Like, I'm sorry, I just realized this. In the action scene in Foul Manor, there's Butler's niece that is brought in to help, doesn't help through the action scene. I don't know, I just might not remember seeing her, but she doesn't do anything. It's a Holly, Butler, and, Dom, because Butler isn't called Butler in this movie. Dom, Holly, and Artemis. The niece isn't there. Oh, this movie is worse than I thought. No, seriously, the good things about the movie is that the intertwining of the movie is good. The visuals are spectacular. Even in, like, Aladdin, which I don't really like, the visuals, I gotta say, in Aladdin are great. And the visuals in Artemis Fowl are amazing. And I do hope this movie succeeds. I don't think it's going to, because just looking up hashtag Artemis Fowl on Twitter and you'll see what I'm talking about. People do not like this movie. And I'm hoping it succeeds. I would love to see a fairy world land in Walt Disney World or Disneyland or any other park. And it's a good family-friendly movie if you haven't seen the book. If you haven't read the book, sorry. If you've read the book, I don't think you like it. But if you haven't read the book and your kid likes fantasy movies, this is a good movie. Good family-friendly one. And I do hope they make a second one. At least. Because I want to see Opal taken down. I want to see what happens to these characters. And even if the public doesn't like this movie, it will probably get a second one because Disney Plus doesn't cost a lot, but I think people are getting Disney Plus just to see this, and then that revenue will come in and they'll account it with Artemis Fowl. So I wouldn't be surprised if they make a franchise off of this, and I wouldn't be surprised if Artemis Fowl books came back after this. Because the first book was released in 2001, and the last book, I don't know when the last book was released. I haven't read them. Like me, I haven't read the Artemis Fowl books, and because of this movie, I want to read the Artemis Fowl books now. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was huge for the Artemis Fowl IP. Anyway, sorry that I went off on a tangent there. I don't like to see bad Disney movies. Whenever I watch a Disney movie, I have high hopes for it. And when it doesn't meet those hopes, some parts, I don't like it. And I won't shy away from that. I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope it helped you. I I hope the way I do my reviews, like the plot and then spoiler and then the bulk of like my thoughts about the movie, I hope that's a good system for you guys. Let me know down in the comments if you do think that's a good system. And I hope you'll subscribe. It would mean a lot to me if you did so. Hit that like button as well while you're there. And go watch Artemis Fowl on Disney+. Recommended watching it with the family. Because watching it alone to review it is not fun. And with that, I hope I see you in the next one. Have a magical day, everyone.